Thank you, Spider. I was hoping that Spider would have played my song so I could come out dancing like I did at the meeting at the Boulevard. Somebody took a clipping of the dance and spread it around on Facebook. And I realized that there were a few more 100 additions to my likes. So I'm disappointed that Spider didn't play my song tonight. Mama Iflabo, how are you doing tonight? How are you doing? All right. I want to recognize our political leader, Honorable Alan Shasney. I want to recognize my colleague and the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, the right guy, and all of you who are following him from Castries Southeast, and all of you that are from other constituencies. I want to big you up for coming tonight. You know, the topic we chose tonight is a very serious topic. I'm here listening to the speakers, and I'm in reflection mode, because all of us who have served as members of parliament, MPs, we go to funerals. And I have had the displeasure of going to many funerals where very often the people that are being buried are young men who would have fallen into gun violence, who would have had altercations with other young men, who would have been members of gangs and would have fell prey to the crisis that is hitting us right now. And I can tell you that it's not a lot of fun hugging and holding those mothers who are crying and speaking to those sisters and brothers who are feeling grief and feeling pain because of an untimely death from a gunshot, most times to the head, several times to the body, multiple shots. I mean, one young man comes to mind who went everywhere with me in the last election, nicest guy you can find. And he lost his life somewhere in the Mondido area. And I never ever thought that it was possible that this young person, must have been 28, would have ever perished so young. He was full of life. He was a leader in the community of Jackmel, was an incredible soul. Many young guys looked up to him. But today, he perished because of gun violence. Another story of a young footballer who played for the Roseau Valley team, a striker, incredible footballer, was on the brink of making the national team and was in the wrong place at the wrong time one evening, a social activity just as normal in the community of Boaden, and an altercation between two young men. He ended up being shot 3 times in the process. And today, he has a bullet lodged in his spine. And that really says the end to his dream of being a footballer for his country. Again, because of the crime situation that we face. And I can go on and on and on with stories like that. And you've seen some nationally. The mother of Kimberly Delia, I wonder how does she sleep at nights. And the young girl from Babino who was expecting her father to come pick her up at school like he usually does, only to find out that, you know, her plight that day would be coming out, and instead of embracing her father and saying, "Daddy, how was your day? This is the day I had," she had to go through the ordeal of watching her father lay in his own blood. This is what we face. I don't even want to talk about the stats tonight, because the stats are even more depressing. And the stats don't bring justice and closure to those people that have perished, those parents who are having to deal with the fact that their children are not burying them, but they are burying their children. I am a father of 3 wonderful young people, and I never ever want to have to go through the ordeal of someone calling me and saying any of them have perished, much less to gun violence. So there is the need, as a political party, we don't just have an obligation to talk. We have an obligation to stand up. We have an obligation to say to this government, enough is enough. We have to make sure that our voices give voice to the stories of all of those people who are feeling the pain tonight, who are hurting inside, who are wishing that they were there to protect them. Just imagine you're a father. And as fathers, we're very protective, especially of our daughters. And just imagine the young girl who was in Dennery went to a social event. Just imagine how her father feels. Just imagine the failure that he feels. It's the same failure that comes about when we are not able to put food on the table. And that's why we must never, ever misunderstand the desperation that we put young men in. That's why the biggest crime that has been committed on our fathers is a travesty by the government, by allowing the cost of living to go up on the poor people of this country, by taking it further out of reach, the ability of fathers to take care of their children and take care of their families, the indignity, the shame that this government has placed them in by not growing a dynamic economy so that these men can work and look after their families. There's a certain level of desperation that comes from a man when you have to look at your young children and say, I can't afford it. And that desperation has been exacerbated by the failed policies of the Philip J. Pierre administration, when they've allowed bus fares to go up, when they've allowed bread to go up, when they've allowed cooking gas to go up, when they've allowed the prices of groceries to be as bad as they are in the supermarket, when they have allowed things to go as sky high as they have. And that is the injustice that is causing the crime. You see, when crime is reported to the police, it's way too late. The police can't do anything to solve it. It is effective government policies. It is effective social policies that will help to create that shield that we need to keep our communities and our families safe. It is only by effective policies. And I'm proud to tell you, when Spider was the Minister for Social Transformation and Alan Chasney was our Prime Minister, our government had a holistic view to this. Not only did we make sure that we equipped the police with some of the latest machinery, like the CCTV cameras that you see everywhere, the opening of the forensic lab, which was closed for many, many years. The radar system was not working when we got into government. The police Coast Guard engine wasn't working. All of this we had to do. We were on our way to make sure that we had an effective border control mechanism in place so that we can protect our borders, we can stop the guns or manage the flow of guns from coming into our country. This was the kind of work that United Workers' Party administration did. But more important than that, we had very, very strong results in the youth sector. And one number I'll never forget is in 2015, youth unemployment was 44%. It means 1 in every 2 young persons that you knew were unemployed. These young people, they've got dreams. They're very materialistic. They love to be able to afford things that they see on television, cell phones, laptops, iPads, fancy brand name shoes. And when a young person is faced in a country where they've gone to school, they've studied, they're looking for a job and can't find a job, that is a point of frustration. And we recognized that straight away we needed to do something about the high youth unemployment rate if we were going to have any impact on the crime situation in the country. And the youth unemployment rate, I'm happy to say that with the skillful economic management and leadership of the Minister of Finance, your leader and your Prime Minister at the time, Alan Shasney, we brought it down in 3 short years, youth unemployment from 44% to 31%, making sure that we create jobs in every sector so that the young people can be employed gainfully in various sectors. When you look at projects such as Ojo Labs and ITEL BPO and a whole host of other projects, the expansion of several hotel projects that you knew, were about building the cruise ship port in the south of the island. These were all done to make sure that the young people of the country can find long-term, sustainable, good paying jobs. This was one of the pillars upon which our crime fighting was on. So what we did was build these young people. Through NAPS, we trained hundreds of them. In my constituency, we had at least 200 that were trained under the National Apprenticeship Program. And that allowed them to compete for jobs globally on the cruise ships, the various cruise lines around the Caribbean, so that we were saying to these young people, there is a future for you with the United Workers' Party. There's a future for you with in Saint Lucia. There's a future for you if you would just make sure that you can take hold of these opportunities that we are creating for you. And so when you see the playing fields that we did island-wide, making sure that we had a holistic approach to the development of sports, making sure that in addition to all the playing fields that you saw, the National Sports Academy that was established in Grosley at the former Grosley Secondary School, and all of those programs were geared at making sure that we strengthen the youth sector. We give the young people the capacity and the ability that they need to make them stronger, make them more hopeful, to say to them, stay away from crime, stay away from drugs, stay away from gangs, stay away from trafficking, that there is an alternative that was created for young people more and more. And Spider spoke about the increased investment in after-school programs. I remember we had with USAID a Youth at Risk program targeting young people in crime hotspots, where those young people were being trained and being geared and being prepared for the world of work so that they can stay away from all of the illegitimate activities that we have spoken about. And that's the difference between them and us. We didn't have a prime minister who say, my father wasn't a policeman, neither was I. He actually said, I am the leader and I am responsible for the crime problem in the country, and I'm going to do something about fighting the crime in Saint Lucia. So leadership is the quintessential thing. Leadership is the thing that is going to get us through this crisis. We have been there before as a country. We've had issues. The era of 1979, 1982 will never be forgotten. And our country has seen where whenever it has fallen on hard times, it is the United Workers' Party, regardless of which generation, that comes and rescue Saint Lucia. Saint Lucia is calling on us again to save it from this government that is clueless, that came to government without a plan. whether it's about crime, whether it's about the economy, whether it's about infrastructure, whether it's about housing, whether it's about education. They have got no plan. And we're seeing the fruits of it. We're seeing how dangerous it is when we elect people with no capacity. And so, if we're going to deal with this problem in a very effective way, we need to give close attention to the issue of second chances. Second chances for our young people. I think that too often our system of dealing with young offenders is one that is overly punitive. What I mean by that is that we will all commit an atrocity at some point. We will all make mistakes. And our system must say to those young people that even if you make a mistake and you are willing to change, that our society is warm and embracing and is willing to accept you back into the fold and work with you and rehabilitate you and rebuild you and put you into a place of overcoming from your wrong. But what has happened is that you ask a company recruiting, and a guy shows up and he's got an offense and he brings that police record. I don't think that he will make it past the interview. And I think that these things have got to change about our culture if we are going to effectively change the current status quo of the crime situation. If we say to that young man that because you've got this criminal record, that you are not considered to be hired, we're saying to him, go back into the crime. We're saying to him, go back into the bad life. We're leaving him widely exposed to drug dealers and other criminals. We're leaving him vulnerable for the other world, the underworld, to pick him up and to use him as an instrument of crime again. But just imagine if we can make sure that this shield, this wall that we're building to prevent crime from taking place in a proactive approach by saying that even the guys who are likely to be reoffenders, that we're going to embrace them, that we're going to help to change them and counsel them and train them for new jobs in the new economy that we are creating. Just imagine how much more we're helping them to overcome those difficulties. Just imagine if our communities didn't stigmatize them. I have a young man who goes to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the constituency of Ancillary. He's from Millet. And he was a gang offender. And I mean, all the crimes, he has committed it under the sun. So he decided to go to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And he said when people saw him in the church, they couldn't believe it was him that had changed his life and was ready now to come and serve Jesus. And I want to say today that this young man is going around Saint Lucia and he is preaching the gospel of Jesus and saying to young men in the ghettos and in inner city areas and in crime hotspots, and he's saying to them, guys, if I did it, you can do it too. If I can change my life, you can change your life as well. And so this man is one of my heroes. And so one of these days, I hope that you get the chance to meet him because he does the most effective work. He reaches young men in gangs. He goes into ghettos that politicians couldn't go. He has a certain level of trust that we don't have among young people. And he is seen as part of the solution rather than the problem. And that's an example to me of how, by embracing and creating that atmosphere for people who lived a life and is ready to leave that life behind, how we can do so much more a better job at reintegrating them into our society. And so, my friends, our country our communities, our families are in trouble. And we need to rise up and save it. The United Workers' Party must rise up. The United Workers' Party must march. The United Workers' Party must organize itself. The United Workers' Party must rally behind its leader and get ready for the battle so that we can take this country back and place it in a great destiny of change, of hope. Let's get it going. So, my friends, our nation needs peace and love. Rather than protecting the victory, the Prime Minister needs to engage civil society groups. The Prime Minister needs to embrace churches. It is the churches that do the most amazing job of preaching of forgiveness and love. I mean, one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is where Jesus says that if you hate your brother, that you are a murderer. So the scripture is not waiting for you to commit the act of violent crime, but the scripture is saying that the minute you have hate in your heart, remove the hate and replace the hate with love and with peace and with joy and long suffering. And that's what young people will learn in churches. But you see, a smart government would embrace that message of peace and hope and togetherness and forgiveness. A smart government would say, let's listen to spiritual leaders. Let's create that atmosphere so that religious and spiritual leaders can be part of this conversation and be part of the solution so that we can build that shield and protect our families, protect our young people, protect our ladies from being raped, protect the animosity. I mean, there's no need that you're driving in Saint Lucia today and you make a mistake on the road and people are ready, they're so full of rage to hit your head off. We are too on edge as a country. We need to heal ourselves. And so we must ensure that a holistic solution to the crime problem is enforced so that we can place our communities into a brand new day. Mama Flabo, are you ready? Are you ready, Mama Flabo? Are you ready to do this? Are you ready to advance a holistic solution to the problem of crime in this country? God bless you. Good night.